You might simply know her as Henry VIII's mistress, who might have been as young as 14, but who really was Bessie Blount. Bessie is of course her nickname, her real name being Elizabeth, but we will keep calling her Bessie throughout this video. And she was born around 1501 in Shropshire. And she was one of 8 children by Sir John Blount with his wife, Catherine Peschel. Elizabeth's siblings were George, William, Henry, Anne, Rose, Isabel, and Albora, but their birth dates are unknown. And very little is actually known about her childhood, but it is believed that she was educated by her mother and other female members of the household. But despite knowing little about her childhood, Bessie's family actually had connections with the royal family. Bessie's maternal grandfather having fought on the side of Henry Tudor in the Battle of Bosworth Field. And Bessie's great-grandfather, Sir Richard Croft, was the steward of the household of Arthur Tudor, the Prince of Wales, who you might know as Catherine of Aragon's first husband. As well as that, her father was one of Henry VIII's King's Spears at Henry VIII's coronation, and it is most likely that her father's influence at the court was what got Bessie a place as Catherine of Aragon's lady-in-waiting. Bessie quickly became known as one of the court's beauties. Thanks to her mother's education, she could sing and dance really well, and she quickly became one of Henry VIII's favourites. And in 1514, she is actually mentioned in a letter to Henry from Charles Brandon, his good friend. The letter infers that Henry VIII and Charles Brandon were partners in flirtation with Bessie Blount, and it is therefore believed that she became his mistress around 1514, if not prior. And this affair lasted for about 5 years. In June of 1519, Bessie went on to give birth to Henry VIII's bastard boy, Henry Fitzroy. Fitzroy being a Norman French name, which literally translated into son of the king. This boy had been born during Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, just 6 months roundabout after Catherine had had her final pregnancy, which resulted in a stillbirth. And so Bessie giving the king a long sought after healthy son was quite the scandal. And so to hopefully put an end to this scandal, Henry sent Bessie away to the Augustinian Priory of St. Lawrence in Blackmore in Essex. Hers and Henry's son's birth of course signified to the king that he could produce healthy male heirs, and this was actually the beginning of Catherine of Aragon's downfall, since Henry Fitzroy's birth now convinced Henry VIII that Catherine of Aragon was at fault for their lack of male heirs. There was talk in the early 1530s about Henry potentially legitimizing Bessie's son Henry Fitzroy, but this never went ahead because the people of England would likely never have accepted a bastard boy by his mistress rather than his legitimate daughter Mary by his true wife Catherine of Aragon. Following his son's birth, however, Henry quickly lost interest in Bessie Blount, and in 1522 she went on to marry Gilbert Talboys, which was likely arranged by Thomas Wolsey under the order of Henry VIII. And after her marriage to Gilbert, his financial standing changed dramatically. Gilbert was given lands in Lincolnshire, in Warwickshire, and in Yorkshire. And following their daughter Elizabeth's birth, they went on to have 2 more children within their marriage until Gilbert's death in 1530. Shortly after his death, Elizabeth went on to marry again to a man named Edward Clinton, who was 14 years younger than Bessie herself. Edward was in service to Henry VIII and his 3 successors during their reigns, and he was created the first Earl of Lincoln in 1572 under Elizabeth I. And Bessie and Edward went on to have 3 children of their own. As you may already know, her eldest son, Henry Fitzroy, who was the son of Henry VIII, did not live long, and Bessie actually only went on to outlive him for about 3 or 4 years. Very little is known about Bessie following the death of Henry Fitzroy, but it is believed that she died either in childbirth or shortly following the birth of her final child, sometime between January of 1539 and February of 1540. She will have been about 40, perhaps 41 at the time, and sadly her burial site is unknown.